Hi everyone. For today, we are going to study the characteristics of living organisms. So we have to know that all living organisms, included they are the single celled or unicellular, or they have more than one cell, multicellular. For example, plants or animals, they show the characteristics that will tell us that they are the living organisms. So one way of remembering the list of the characteristic of living things is by using the mnemonic MRSGREN, or we can call Mrs. Green. So the letters stand for the first letter of the characteristic. So these mnemonics will work by helping to make the material you are learning more meaningful. So I hope that you can remember all of the characteristic of living organism by using this mnemonic. The first one is M. So M stands for movement. So movement is an action by an organism or part of the organism causing a change of position or place. Okay, so it could be a part of the organism or the whole body of the organism. If it is a whole body of organism, we call it as the active movement. So most single cell creatures like the bacteria and animals, they can move about as a whole body. So it is called as the active movement. For example, here the amoeba, it is a protist. They can move. They have only one cell, so they can move as a whole body. Okay, for all of them. All right, and then for the passive movement, it is only parts of their body that's move. For example, fungi and plants. So as you can see here, for the plants, they can move toward the light, for example, but only parts of the plant that move. For example, the branches or the leaves that they move toward the flower. For example, the part of the flower they move toward the sunlight. Okay, so it is the passive movement. All right, and then R, for R it stands for respiration. So for the respiration, it describes the chemical reaction in cells. So in our cells, there are chemical reaction that break down the molecules, the food molecules that we eat. After that, it will release energy for the metabolism or for the activity of our cells. So it is called as respiration. So for example, plants, they also breathe in and out. They need oxygen and breathe out the carbon dioxide also, and also for the animals and other organisms. All right, so next characteristic is S. S stands for sensitivity. So it is the ability to detect or sense stimuli in the internal or external environment and to make appropriate responses. Okay, if we can detect the stimuli, after that we can give the response. So the stimuli is the plural. If it is only one, it's called a stimulus. For example, in the environment, there is a light or there is a touch, and then we can detect that stimuli, and then after that we can give the response. For example, our five senses, five sense organs, for our eyes, ears, and nose, tongue, and skin. So we can detect the stimuli. The stimuli are, for example, light for the eyes, and then sound or the touch for the skin. And then, for example, the popular example is from the plant Mimosa pudica. So the part of the leaf can close when we touch it with our hands, for example. This the stimulus is the touching. All right, next is G. G stands for growth. So it is a permanent increase in size and dry mass by an increase in cell number or cell size or both of them. So if the cell number increase or the size of the cell increase, we call this as the permanent change. So it is growth. So it is irreversible. All right. Then, for example, even the bacteria, the single cell organism, they show the increase in size. For example, they increase in the number of their cells and also size of their colonies. And then in the multicellular organism like human, we increase the number of cells in our bodies. For example, when we were a baby and we became adult, so the number of cells in our body also increase. And also it can also change the shape of our body. Okay, for example, here in the animal, in the butterfly, the shape of the organism is also will be increased or be different. Okay, next we have R. It stands for reproduction. So reproduction is the process that makes more of the same kind of organism. So it makes sure that the offspring is still there for the next generation. This is called as the reproduction. So we can know the reproduction in the multicellular plants and animals. It exists in these two types, sexual or asexual. For the sexual reproduction, it is the gametes or the egg and sperm cells are involved. When they fuse together, they become zygote. After that, they become embryo and develop into baby. All right, and a single cell organism like bacteria, they have very simple reproduction. They may just simply keep dividing into two organisms. From one parent cell, they undergo cell division. After that, two new daughter cells are produced. All right, and then we have E for excretion. So excretion is the removal from organisms of the waste products of metabolism. So the waste products means that the waste from our chemical reaction include for respiration. For example, the waste is carbon dioxide and also toxic materials and other excess substances that we do not need. So these products or substances must be excreted because they will become toxin. Yeah, they will be toxic for our body. And then here example for respiration of or and other chemical change in the cell produce waste product. For example, carbon dioxide will be excreted from the lungs, through our nose or our mouth. And then for the living organism, they can expel these substances from their bodies in various ways. For example, for the kidney, the formation of the urine that will be excreted through the urethra. And then for in the lungs, for example, to excrete the carbon dioxide, and also in our liver, they can any ammonia, for example, can be excreted. The processes and will be excreted through other parts of our body. Okay, the last one is nutrition. Nutrition is when we eat. Okay, so we provide food for our body. So it is the taking in of material for energy. So the purpose of this eating or taking in nutrition, it is for energy, growth, and development. So for example, plants require light, carbon dioxide, and water and iron. So it is to support for the growth and for the development. Animals need organic compounds and ions and usually need water. Animals also using ready-made organic molecules as their food source. For example, from the animals that we eat, so we are called as the heterotrophs. And from the consumer levels of food chain, so we are the consumer. Okay, and then for the organisms, they can take in the materials they need as solid food, for example, like animals do, or they can digest them first and then absorb them, so like fungi, or they can build them up for themselves. For example, the photosynthesis of plants, so they can build up the materials for themselves. They can produce the carbohydrate for nutrition. But for us human being, we have the digestive system so that we can absorb the food molecules. Alright, so you have to remember these 7 main characteristics of living organism. MRSGREN, or you can call it as the Mrs. Gran, for example. So it will be easier for you to remember. Okay, thank you. See you in the next lesson.